Tonight on The Buzz, we look forward into 2019 to spot emerging trends that will impact the media industry this year. We've invited 7 futurists to share their thoughts on what's coming. We start with Michael Kammes, the new Director of Business Development for Bebop Technology. Then we'll hear from Philip Hodgetts, the CEO of Lumberjack System, Producer-Director Maxim Jago, Larry O'Connor, the CEO of Otherworld Computing, Emery Wells, the CEO of Frame.io, and Paul Babb, the new head of worldwide marketing for Maxon. All this, plus James DeRuvo with our weekly Doddle News Update. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. The start of a new year is as good a time as any to take a look around our industry to try to figure out what's going on. And tonight, we've collected a great group of industry leaders, and I'm looking forward to learning something new during our conversations. This will be an interesting show. By the way, if you enjoy The Buzz, please give us a positive rating and review in the iTunes Store. We appreciate your support to help us grow our audience. And now it's time for our Doddle News Update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year 2019, Larry.
It's going to be an exciting time, no question, and I can't think of a better way to start than with you and the news. What you got for us?
Well, we're still recovering from a post-holiday stupor, so I thought since we were going to be talking about trends in 2019 tonight, that we'd talk about what may be coming in the next few months.
Okay.
So kicking off the first story of the year, of course, Red had to get in the mix, and they previewed a picture of their new lithium 4V holographic camera that they've been developing with Lucid Technologies. It's going to contain dual 4K image sensors for an 8K stereographic image. And the control hub for this camera, it's not going to have a conventional brain like you think. It looks like it's going to be controlled by the Red Hydrogen One 4V smartphone.
Well, let's back up a step for people that don't necessarily live on the cutting edge of future technology. What's 4V?
4V stands for 4View, and the best way I can describe it is, you remember those old Viewmasters we got to play with when we were kids?
Mm-hmm.
A 3D image with depth and everything. It's kind of a very high-tech image like that, but only more advanced, coming from your smartphone screen, so you don't need any type of virtual reality glasses or goggles or anything like that. It's just there. But honestly, I think it's too soon to tell if 4V holographic content is going to take off. If we look to the past to see what these kind of technologies perform, we only need to look at both 3D and virtual reality to see that 4V may be the next great technology, but it may also be a very, very small percentage of the market.
All right. Well, that's Red. What's your number 2 story?
It has to do with CES. You know, if we're going to talk about trends in 2019, the first place to hit the ground running is the Consumer Electronics Show, which is now, for some reason, just known as CES. They're going to be showing electronic technology from all over the world, from every single conceivable electronics category you can think of. I like to call it nerd stock. And the big buzzword is going to be the emergence of 5G mobile internet access. And not only with your mobile phones, but Intel is pushing 5G for your laptops so that your internet access will always be on no matter what device you're carrying and no matter where you are. TV manufacturers will also be showing off the future 8K monitor designs, but industry analysts all agree that this year is going to be an off year for TVs as 4K prices have come down and content is only now getting to the point of market saturation where we're going to see every Blu-ray coming out in 4K. But even then, we're still in a 1080p in the broadcast world, and even some broadcast channels are still broadcasting in 720p. So the only place that you're going to see 8K broadcast is out of Japan right now. So industry analysts all agree that 8K is still way over the horizon. And the other thing that's going to be big at CES is going to be augmented reality, as it officially replaces virtual reality in many hearts and minds this year. Application developers are opening up their apps for overlaying data onto real-world images from their app, and that means that augmented reality is really going to be the hot thing this year instead of VR. VR, by contrast, is going to be going through an adjustment period as manufacturers like Oculus tack their way towards devices that are lower priced and don't require a high-priced computer to drive them. But even then, I still think VR isn't long for this world.
Okay, 5G at CES means that it's still a while before it hits the mass market. Still, this is exciting news for those that need faster wireless download speeds. What's your thought?
5G is closer than you think. AT is already starting to push what they call 5G enhanced. And you should be seeing a 5GE logo on your mobile devices in the next few months. But T-Mobile execs are arguing that it's just a marketing ploy and that it's not really here yet. But many carriers are gearing up for it, and it's expected that 5G will launch later this year.
Okay, what's our third story?
Well, I know you don't really like rumors, but there's this persistent talk that Sony may showcase an 8K full-frame mirrorless camera in response to the full-frame mirrorless cameras that were announced last year by Panasonic, Canon, and Nikon. And while that may happen at CES, I don't think it's going to be an official major announcement. And even then, it'll likely be much like the A7 III, which uses a 6K sensor that downscales to a 4K image. So even then, I think it'll technically be an 8K image sensor in an A7 IV, but look for it to be a 6K image that comes out the other end. Meanwhile, in an interview with DP Review, Panasonic executives stated that their company is developing 8K cameras, but they're not even going to be putting one out until after the Olympics in 2020.
I'm very curious to see where this resolution battle ends up, because while I can understand the value of 4K, I'm not sure the value of 8K images or beyond is worth compared to, say, HDR and lower resolutions.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I think if anything, the market for 8K would be in the movie theaters. But even then, those movie theaters only recently underwent an extensive and expensive refit to 4K projection. So I don't think their advancement timetable for 8K is as quick as the manufacturers would like. That's just the way it is. So I don't think we're going to see 8K anywhere for, like I said, the Olympics, after the Olympics in 2020. That's the beginning of 2019, Larry. That's where we are. And, you know, the good news is, though, is NAB is only 4 months away.
Very true.
Tell me more about what's going on The Buzz tonight.
Well, tonight on The Buzz, we're picking up on your idea of looking forward into the year 2019 with some of our favorite futurists talking about what we can expect in the upcoming year, and it's going to be an interesting show.
You know, I always love looking over the horizon and seeing what's coming.
Especially when we can guess right.
Indeed.
And where can we go on the web to learn more about the stories you and your team are covering?
As always, in 2019, all these stories and more can be found at doddlenews.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of Doddle News and joins us every week. Have yourself a great year, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Happy New Year.
As Director of Business Development for Bebop, Michael Kammes leverages his experience with creative technology and tools providers to accelerate growth and provide strategic perspective across marketing, sales, and partnership. He's also a frequent and welcome contributor to The Buzz. Hello, Michael. Welcome back.
Larry, great to hear your voice, and Happy New Year.
And a very Happy New Year to you. Michael, as you just heard in our Doddle News update, we're taking a look back at 2018 and projecting coming trends for 2019. But before we start, there's a new title attached to your name. Congratulations. Tell me about your new position.
I'm working at Bebop Technology. Bebop Technology is obviously a technology company that focuses on editorial and VFX and creative applications in the cloud. So instead of having a machine local next to you that you have to upgrade every couple of years and take care of, you can use any pedestrian computer, access a virtual machine in the cloud, and edit, whether it be video or motion effects, like you're sitting in front of the machine.
Well, congratulations on your new position and your new company, and I wish you all success in the future.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it.
So put your technology hat on. What are some of the highlights that caught your eye from 2018?
Well, here in Hollywood, at least, we got really excited because Google put in a data center in Hollywood. So that means anyone who wants to access the aforementioned cloud can do it with local resources, meaning in town, and that helps out a lot. I know that's not great for people who are outside Hollywood, but for the microcosm that is Hollyweird, it's fantastic.
Well, why? Wait, take a breath for a second. Back that up. Yes, sure. Google's got a data center in L.A., but we still have to dial out or whatever it is up to the web before we can get to it. Why is having a local resource important?
Well, I don't know about you, Larry, but I don't do much dialing lately. I ran out of my AOL hours, so I'm not dialing as much anymore. But you're right. For the folks who are local, you do obviously have to get out to the Internet. So it is dependent on your connection at home. But if you're playing video live, if you're trying to back files up, you're trying to copy files back, you can interact with them faster if they're sitting on Google storage in a data center that's near you. It also allows developers to put together applications that require that kind of short latency by having that data center close to you. So for us folks out here, it's fantastic.
Okay, well, don't tell my phone that I can't dial out anymore.
The other big thing I saw last year was folks can finally afford NVMe flash media. For years, we've had to deal with spinning disks, right? And then we went to SSDs, which were a great trade-off between speed and cost. And solid-state flash memory has always been prohibitively expensive. But we're seeing that price drastically drop. And now you can use that to house the OS on your PC. You can use these kinds of storage solutions in multiple types of computers, which allows you to get thousands of megabytes a second of throughput as opposed to, dozens or hundreds like we had with SSDs and spinning disks.
Well, what's the difference between an SSD and an NVMe disk? Whatever.
The NVMe is essentially flash memory. And depending on what kind of form factor it has, you can. It's commonly referred to as M2, M.2, which is the form factor which attaches to the motherboard. So you're effectively using that NVMe, which is flash storage, as a hard drive, quote unquote, and you get much better performance.
Do we have the same level of reliability that we do with an SSD?
Completely, because it's solid state. There isn't moving parts. Which means you're going to have much increased reliability compared to hard drives and even better shelf life than SSDs.
Okay, let's flip forward to 2019. What trends are you looking forward to?
Well, I know a lot of editors aren't going to like this, but we've seen this over the past couple of years, and that's moving from a CapEx to OpEx. And let me explain that a little bit. Traditionally, you buy software and you own it. Right? Avid used to do that back in the day. Adobe used to do that back in the day. Apple still does it to this day. You buy it, you own it, done. And a lot of folks like that because it's a one-time expenditure. But what we're seeing is a lot more companies, especially in the editorial space, have said, you know what, we can't project business, how that's going to fly. So we're going to start charging per month. And I know a lot of editors do not like that. However, there is something to be said for why am I shelling out hundreds or thousands of dollars if I'm not using it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I think people are going to have to start adjusting the way they spend money to go on a monthly plan or maybe, paying at the beginning of a year than having to just fork it out once and be done with it.
Okay, I can see that that's going to cause a lot of controversy.
Yeah, luckily Adobe took the bullet for us on that one, and now everyone's falling in line past that. I'm also a fan of video over IP. Obviously, the standard has been ratified, I think, SMPTE 2021, if I'm not mistaken, in 2022. The big player is NDI. NDI is Network Device Interface, and this is from a company called NewTek. NewTek was one of the first companies to look at the video over IP standard and say, this is fantastic, but it's not great for a majority of people out there because they don't have that kind of infrastructure either for their network or for their internet pipe. So NewTek came out with a way of taking full ocean video, SD, HD, et cetera, and compressing it down to a video stream over your network, which means you now can beam video around your network like a traditional video router and even outside your network to distant places without getting a satellite truck and without expensive interconnects.
Now, that's very cool.
Yeah.
What else are you seeing for the coming year? Oh, wait, before I do that, we've got to bring you back to talk more about all of this stuff. But for people that want to keep track of what you're thinking and what you're writing, and especially 5 things, how can we find you?
Well, thank you so much for that. MichaelKammes.com. And we also have my technology podcast and web series, 5thingsseries.com.
That's the number 5, THINGS, 5things.com, 5thingsseries.com. And Michael Kammes is the Director of Business Development for Bebop. And Michael, I promise, we'll bring you back soon.
Hope you feel better, Larry. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Here's another website I want to introduce you to, dottlenews.com. Dottle News gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. Dottle News also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. Dottle News is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, dottlenews.com. Philip Hodgetts is recognized as a leading technologist as well as the CEO of Lumberjack System. Even better, he's a regular here on The Buzz where he specializes in explaining new technology. Hello, Philip. Welcome back.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Larry.
And a very Happy New Year to you as well. You know, it seems appropriate, seeing as this is the first Thursday in a new year, to look and try and figure out what's coming. And nobody can spot the future better than you can, so I'm going to dump the whole burden on your shoulders. What do you see as key trends this coming year?
Well, I would like to point out that if I was really, really good at predicting the future, I'd be a whole lot richer. So take that in, keep that in mind. I think it's going to be one of those years where we get both the high end and sort of the low end exploding at the same time. And by which I mean at the high end, I think we'll see a lot more raw acquisition. That's definitely been an ongoing trend over the last couple of years. At the low end, I think mobile production is just going to explode. And of course, machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to be at our side the whole year. So to me, they're the 3 big things that I'm looking at this year.
At the low end, you talked about exploding production. What do you mean?
I have, within grabbing distance, 3, 4, 5 HD cameras. Within the room, I could add another 2 to that, or 4K cameras. None of them would be too big to put into my pocket. Yesterday, I carried an entire multi-camera live streaming kit in a bag, and that included tripods for the cameras, tripods for lights, battery-powered LED lights on very light, low-footprint plants, using Switcher Studio to do a live stream. The two cameras were old iPhones that were just essentially now Wi-Fi cameras, network-connected smart cameras, an iPad, and that was the production kit. Everything to do a live stream out to Facebook was there in a very, very small bag. I mean, most of which was mounts to put up lights and to put up cameras. You combine that with other software options on mobile like LumaFusion from LumaTouch. I mean, that's a very, very powerful professional NLE on an iOS device. These tools are just exploding, and I think the great thing is that they're putting the creativity into the hands of everybody. I mean, this has always been Apple's goal, is to put the tools of creativity and make them accessible to everybody. And now we're seeing this explode, that, whether you are on iOS or on Android or other platforms, you have the ability to produce high quality video and stories. So it's really up to you now to tell the story that you want to tell, to find those stories, rather than have these blockages that we had when we started our careers, that access to quality equipment was expensive and hard to find.
But part of this is not only access to low-cost production equipment, but also a diversity in delivery platforms. Distribution has also exploded. What's your thought on that?
Absolutely. I see that Netflix are planning to do 90 feature films this year with budgets up to $200 million a film. I mean, that's almost a 25% increase in the amount of feature films that are created every year. I see a number of pressures that's going to happen from this increase in production. One is that it's going to push good talent. It's going to make good talent very much more valuable. But I think it's going to push people to use tools to assist and make themselves more productive, to bring the cost of production down. Which gets into your feeling on AI. What are your thoughts there? I've had a little bit of a change in thinking about AI over the time even we've been talking about it. I mean, I started to see the big potentials, like, wouldn't it be great if we could do basic string outs or or automatically tag keywords and things. And I see that as still being reasonably good goals to achieve, but not something that we're going to get to quickly, if ever. But what I am seeing is that machine learning is there around us all day, every day. Somebody today was on Twitter saying that they had a new way of doing removing backgrounds from portraits, just using machine learning, that they had just fed in a lot of images, and the machine learned how to take backgrounds out from around fine hairs and the like. There's the color matching in Adobe Sensei in Premiere Pro. That's all AI based, not just a simple algorithm that says, well, if this color is at this level, then we need to adjust it to that level and that color. Between two, simple color matching has been made more sophisticated, to the degree that it will start to take away the need for some of those colorist jobs who can now devote all their attention to the raw footage they have to process. We had a good conversation about a month ago with Terry Curran from Alpha Dogs and Mark Rodonis from Bunham Murray. And what they were talking about is that the market seems to be splitting into the high end and the low end, where the middle ground is disappearing. Is there still possible for us to make money in the middle ground, or is it really just splitting into two groups? Well, I think that's indicative of the way the society is intending to split into two groups, one at the top and one at the lower end. These are great times to be making content, but the sort of business where we sold the production technologies and skills as being the thing we sold, I think is the area that's going to be most at risk, because that's something that people feel that they don't need to pay for anymore. The technology's become a lot cheaper and those skills are taught in school. That's becoming yet another threat to the mainstream media, because the generation of tweens and young teens and below are just making video for themselves. They're not waiting for some gatekeeper to let them in and to start getting access. And so when those corporate clients see that sort of thing going on around them, they see their kids doing that, they wonder what the value is that they've been paying for. And that's why I think those businesses get a little bit stretched in the middle. And Philip, for people who want to keep track of your thinking on the web, where can they go? PhilipHodgetts.com or LumberjackSystem.com. That's all one word, PhilipHodgetts, PhilipHodgetts.com. And the Philip Hodgetts himself, who's the CEO of Lumberjack System, is who we've been chatting with. Philip, have yourself a wonderful new year, and I look forward to talking to you soon. And you do too, Larry. Thank you.
Maxim Jago is a film director, screenwriter, and author who splits his time between filmmaking and speaking as a futurist, especially at events that celebrate creativity. Hello, Maxim. Welcome back.
Hello, Larry. It's nice to be with you.
Tonight, we're taking a look back at 2018 and then using that to help figure out what's coming in 2019. As you look back, what were some of the key highlights for you in 2018?
A few things that jump out at me. I mean, one thing is that we really are seeing now the distribution landscape changing so that people genuinely can make a living, get an income from what used to be called social media platforms, but now I think perhaps ought to just be called media. And we've seen this transformation of online distribution platforms like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Studios. They're really transforming into full-blown studios that are operating in the same way that the other studios have for decades. And so I think that we've completed the migration from traditional distribution mediums to, I don't know what to call it, the new wave. New media can no longer be called new media. I think one of the other lessons that I've taken away from 2018 is that more pixels definitely does not mean a better user experience. And I think that the companies developing technologies to support audiences are coming around to the importance of the audience experience above the color acuity and the pixel count and that kind of thing. So, for example, we've seen not an enormous take-up of VR headsets where you need more complex technology and more complex configuration, but we've seen great take-up for standalone VR headsets that you just turn on, and although they have simplified functionality, they're much easier for people to access. So I think there's been this shift of thinking towards easier audience experiences.
One of the things you mentioned was that distribution has expanded far beyond traditional broadcast and cable into what we used to call social media. But from what I'm hearing from others is that the business model has not shifted so that we're not making the same amount of money with social media outlets as we are with traditional broadcast and cable. The dollars have not kept up. Which has implications for higher quality or more expensive productions. Would you agree or disagree?
I think I would totally agree. And I think what we're seeing is almost a repeat of, if you look at the early stages of commercial cinema and commercial TV, there was this kind of battle of experiences where people would argue that it's not as good on TV, but others would argue it's more accessible, and how can you make the same money? And ultimately, they're different beasts that have different benefits, different costs. I think that what we've seen is a watering down of the distribution landscape, which has been very challenging for the smaller operators producing independent content, for example, or the smaller distributors. But what I think we're seeing with the larger studios is really business as usual. If you look at companies like Netflix, for example, they really do seem to be operating in a studio model. They won't take meetings with just anybody. They want introductions, and they're already looking very seriously at taking ownership of theaters so that they can have both an online and a traditional theatrical release. So I think that for the majors, it kind of is business as usual. They're taking command of every output channel possible, but it is less efficient than just saying, well, we have broadcast TV and we'll do a license deal, and we've got cinemas and we own them all, and that's the end of it. Now what we're starting to see is this much more complex process where each different distribution platform requires its own deals. And those are very inefficient legally. If you don't have an in-house legal team, which of course these major studios have, but if you don't have that, it can take a massive chunk of the potential revenues away. And so one of the things that's very interesting that's coming up, maybe jumping ahead here, is the implementation of smart contracts to manage payments in productions, particularly independent productions. And there's some very interesting developments coming there.
Well, let's take a look forward then. Building on what you saw in 2018, what's coming in 2019?
First of all, NVIDIA have shown these examples of artificial faces. I don't know if you'd have seen any of that. It's absolutely fascinating because they really are pretty much indistinguishable from natural human faces. But they're not based on anything. They're procedurally generated. And this is both beautiful and terrifying because it puts into question the role of actors in films, and that combined with Google's procedurally generated human speech system. It's not a speech synthesis system, it's actually generating speech, means that we're moving towards virtual actors, which I think is something we've spoken about before. And so we're seeing some new technologies coming online. We're seeing very high quality, built-in, inside-out motion tracking VR headsets. Oculus have announced something that's coming, the Quest headset. I've been working with a company, GameFace Labs, producing Core.Live, which is a micro form factor supercomputer for VR and other gaming experiences. We're seeing this new generation of technology coming online. But all of that, to me, is just another medium. It's another way for audiences to experience things. And what it always comes back to is the story. And that's not changing at all. People need to tell stories, and they need to tell stories that people care about. But what I also see happening is in the business side of production, we're now looking at the meaningful implementation of cryptocurrencies, which, to put it as briefly as possible, is just a more efficient way for us to transact money. But what cryptocurrencies allow us to do is use smart contracts where you can build into the whole process of distribution the payments that are due to participants in the project. So, for example, if your music composer is due to get, 1.5% of your net profits, that can literally come from each individual ticket sale via an automated process with nobody in the middle promising to be honest about what the revenues are, because the whole thing is automated and every transaction is recorded on a blockchain, which means that it can be verified and checked and can't be faked. So we're starting to see mechanisms coming in that are automating a very honest, what people are referring to as a trustless transaction system, where trust is irrelevant to the transaction because we don't need trust. We have a mechanism in place that is by design honest. And I think that's going to be very interesting for collaborative creative productions where people just get together and decide to make something amazing and everybody who participates benefits.
Fascinating. For people who want to keep track of what you're thinking and researching, and especially the projects you're working on, where can they go on the web?
I'm easy to find, maximjago.com. Pretty easy to find.
That's all one word, Maxim Jago, MaximJago, maximjago.com. All one word, maximjago.com. And Maxim Jago is the voice you've been listening to. Maxim, thanks for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
Larry O'Connor is the founder and CEO of Otherworld Computing, which we all know as OWC. Founded in 1988, OWC is both a developer and a reseller, supporting all things Mac for more than 30 years. Hello, Larry. Welcome back.
Hey, how you doing, Larry?
Well, aside from a cold, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, no complaints at all.
That's always a good way to start the year. This week, we're looking back at the highlights of 2018 and projecting key trends for 2019. But before we do that, congratulations to OWC's acquisition of Akishio, which was announced this morning. Why did you acquire the company?
You know, they're a good fit for us. They complement us in areas where we have some gaps, and we have some different technology that accelerates and enhances their product line. So, for lack of any other good reason, they're a really good fit for us. And there's plenty of other great reasons that made this something that we really couldn't pass up. It's a win for both organizations.
And what happens to the Akishio team?
They're not part of the OWC family. So everybody who's part of Akishio, actually, Akitio is remaining with OWC. So they have now become a part of Team OWC as of actually just a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations to everybody. So as we look back at 2018, from your perspective, what were some of the highlights?
Geez, I mean, we saw bigger hard drives. We saw faster Thunderbolt arrays, more drives in arrays. Solid-state drives finally started to come down in price. I can go on and on. I mean, that's the big thing that didn't change, of course, the number of ports on these machines and the need for additional ports connected into them. Now, we did see for the first time 32 gigs in Apple laptops, which is a nice jump forward with Apple's new MacBook Pro line. But still we face the port challenge.
Well, that brings up your reactions to the new Mac Mini.
The Mac Mini, was kind of a step in the right direction. We unfortunately got the solid state solder, but you do have some nice ports for expansion on the back. It's got nice Thunderbolt 3 ports. They're still fixing a little power issue with those Type-C ports, but the memory is upgradable. That was a reverse from what they did in 2014. So instead of being limited to up to only 16 gigs from the factory, now you can upgrade all the way up to 64 gigabytes, and that's something you can do starting from 8 gigs and at your leisure move all the way up. So it's nice to see Apple bringing back user expandability and upgradability again. I like the Mac Mini. I think it's expensive, but I do like its long-term flexibility and the ability to kind of keep it future-proof.
I will confess I purchased one, and I've been having a great deal of fun playing with it. So I second your opinion. It may be a bit expensive, but it's a great tool. As you look at hardware, looking back at 2018, what do you see driving hardware changes in 2019?
I hope the user gets to drive some of those changes. I hit the Mac Mini real quick. I mean, with the ports it's got, you can give that the same horsepower as a MacBook Pro or even an iMac Pro. Now just by connecting an eGPU card, eGPU chassis rather, like a Helios FX, into one of those Thunderbolt ports, so you can upgrade the GPU and give it a GPU in this particular case, do the same kind of heavy lifting that an iMac Pro can do. And in 2019, I like what Apple did with the Mac Mini last October. I really hope they continue those thoughts when we get to the next MacBook Pro, the next iMac, and of course, hopefully a Mac Pro refresh. Bring back that ability for the user to have some flexibility in where its future goes. And gosh, I hope they do something about the keyboard on the Apple laptops. Maybe the younger folks don't mind, but I have a hard time with that. I still the butterfly 1, 2, 3. I don't care which version you're tapping on. Like hitting a board compared to the nice keyboards that Apple, I would say, abandoned with the Retina after 2015.
Yeah, for someone who spends a lot of his time writing, the keyboard is a really important aspect of that to me. And we are all keeping our fingers crossed for what Apple develops for the modular Mac Pro. I think that is one of the key driving factors of excitement in the coming year.
I've been saying it for a long, long time. The base systems become less and less relevant as we go forward in terms of what's built into it and what even what OS to some degree is run on it. I mean, people want things to get the job done as more moves to the cloud, less dependencies on that core system. Apple needs to listen to its user and give the user what the user is asking for. Give the consumer what the consumer needs. Give the professional users a machine that they really can make great use of.
What's been the reaction to the eGPU? Has it been well received?
It's been fantastically received. It gives new life to systems that otherwise might have been shut out from the new AR and VR technologies, and even what Mojave does in terms of its different effects. And knowing that you have a processor that's great and a big load that's put on the GPU, and now you can upgrade that GPU with something that plugs in externally is really sweet. And you look at the MacBook Air 2018 that just got introduced about the same time as the Mac Mini. Here's another machine that on its own is fine for a lot of basic work, but you can get back to base, plug in a dock, plug in an eGPU, and now it's a workstation.
What trends in media are you expecting for 2019?
Well, we're seeing the first 8K broadcast coming up soon in Japan, and that, of course, finds its way back here. 8K sets are coming out, so more and more demand on higher-resolution video capture means certainly more demand for capacity to store that media that's going to be generated at that higher resolution. And the nice thing that supports that for the editing and the processing side is a lower cost per gigabyte on the solid-state drive side. We're going to see a lot more adoption of SSD for the editing, for the post-processing, and just greater demand for hard drive storage just to have all those raw files, all the duplicates, all the backups of that source stored.
Michael Kammes was seeing a shift from SSD to NVMe storage. Are you seeing the same thing?
When I say SSD, NVMe is just another, how to say, interface for flash. But when we're talking SSD, the traditional SATA drive to NVMe, which is a PCIe direct storage solution, I would absolutely agree with that more and more. It's definitely going the NVMe route. Even in our externals, we're not, all of our new solutions are now NVMe based. We still support for the standard systems for USB 3, standard 2.5 inch SSD, SATA SSD, but for everything USB Type C Gen 2 and everything Thunderbolt 3, that's all going NVMe. So I guess the easier way to get out there, there's going to be more flash, solid state flash storage going forward for the heavy lifting versus in the past where budgets kind of constrain that. But yes, SATA is in general, and we're talking just SATA interface solutions for anything where speed is being talked about. That's going to become the minority versus NVMe PCIe taking the flash spotlight.
And for people that want more information about the products that OWC offers, where can they go on the web?
You can visit OWC.com and find everything via Maxim, OWC Digital. You'll find where to buy, what's new, and what we can do for your computer. So everything is at OWC.com now. And
Larry O'Connor is the founder and CEO of OWC. And Larry, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, great way to start the new year off. And thank you, Larry.
Bye-bye. Emery Wells is the co-founder and CEO of Frame.io, a video review and collaboration platform used by hundreds of thousands of media professionals and companies. Prior to Frame.io, he was an award-winning producer and visual effects supervisor. Hello, Emery. Welcome back.
Hello, Larry. Always a pleasure to be here.
One of the things that the change in the year does is it gives us a chance to look back and look forward. As you look back on 2018, what were some of the key highlights?
A couple of key highlights for Frame.io was our launch of workflow extensions for Final Cut Pro. And I think that was something that's going to be important for the industry at large. We were a launch partner with Apple in launching the very first workflow extension. I think ProRes RAW is going to be something that is important. I'm quite proud of the workflow guide that we launched at Frame.io. It's a 100,000 word guide on everything you need to know about workflow from capture to delivery. And it was a huge effort on our part, and hopefully that'll be something that is referenced for many years to come.
I have not yet read every word in that workflow guide, but that which I've read is amazing. You guys deserve a huge pat on the back for putting that together. It's excellent.
Thank you.
What trends and news do you expect for 2019? Let's flip it around and look ahead.
For 2019, sort of this next generation of video creator is going to become the most important video creator. I think they've sort of been second tier, the traditional filmmaker or professional filmmaking industry that's been focused on broadcast and feature films and things like that have always been the face of the industry. But I think that'll start to flip in 2019. Certainly the broadest base of creators are not producing work for those platforms anymore. And it's a whole new generation of creators that care about different things. They don't have the baggage of hating Final Cut. They don't hate vertical video. They grew up making video on mobile devices. And I think there's a lot of wide-reaching implications for the rest of the industry. I think that group cares less about quality. And I think quality has become almost more of an aesthetic choice. We had to fight really hard just to try to make something look halfway decent, halfway professional. I think the technology and the quality has gotten good enough where now it's become really more of a choice. Not, of course, quality and quest for quality is going to always continue in the background, but how people utilize it is changing. It's not necessarily what works on the largest distribution channels anymore. Social media channels are the largest distribution channel that we have for the content that we're creating, and the type of content that works well on those channels is just very different than what works well on television or movies.
You called these the next generation video content creator. How would you define what those people are?
Well, they're certainly younger. I think they're graduating high school and college now. So they're a new generation. They've grown up with a different set of technologies. As I was saying, they grew up making video on their phones. They grew up making video for social. They have a different set of goals than I think the creators that are producing stuff right now.
Ned Schultz last week, as we were talking with him, made reference to the same group of a new flavor of content creator. The question that I've got is, can you make a living at it? You can absolutely create all kinds of video for free, but what does it do for a business model?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Certainly the number of people that are making a living off of essentially creating their own brand, that is a growing population of people that are making video to promote their own brand, and really their business is their brand. So it's an important distinction to make. But then there's still going to be the people that are just producing video for social. There's always generations in every industry. And so naturally, a younger generation is going to approach things a little bit differently with a different set of kind of principles, criteria, concerns. I think really the biggest thing is just they embrace the channels for distribution that exist today in a way that I think the older generations or the folks that have been doing this for a longer time, they continue to reject. The idea that any filmmaker today rejects vertical video is absurd. The idea that any creator today rejects Final Cut Pro is absurd. And it's just the natural sort of, they don't have the baggage.
You've talked about the new generation video creator who tends to be a single individual, and yet you've built your company based on collaboration. Are we getting out of sync between where your company is headed and where these new media creators are going?
Well, I don't think it's that they necessarily don't work with one another. I mean, I think that what we found with Frame.io is that even, the majority of the people who we sell to today are individuals in small teams. We have large organizations as well that have thousands of people who are producing stuff, and that'll continue to exist. But even the folks that are buying our entry level plans for $15 or $19 and $29 a month, they're still working with people. Even when you're producing media for social, it's still a very collaborative art. It's a very collaborative process. I think that group of people, they don't really have necessarily a full-blown business with full-time employees, but they have a loose collection of characters that they're sort of pseudo in business with, that they're kind of usually working with all the time. So even in those one-man bands, I find that there typically is this kind of loose collection of people that are almost full-time, not being paid or employed full-time, but are kind of working together on a consistent basis.
Some very interesting thoughts. Emery, for people that want to learn more about what you and your company are doing, where can they go on the web?
They can go to frame.io.
That's frame.io, not .com, frame.io. And Emery Wells is the co-founder and CEO of Frame.io. And Emery, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry.
I want to introduce you to a new website, Thalo.com. Thalo is an artist community and networking site for creative people to connect, be inspired, and showcase their creativity. Thalo.com features content from around the world with a global perspective on all things creative. Thalo is the place for creative folks to learn, collaborate, market, and sell their works. Thalo is a part of Thalo Arts, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with the resources you need to succeed. Visit Thalo.com and discover how their community can help you connect, learn, and succeed. That's Thalo.com. Paul Babb is the head of worldwide marketing for Maxon, as well as a creative artist and designer with more than 20 years' experience in 3D animation, visual effects, motion graphics, and graphics design. Hello, Paul. Welcome back.
Happy New Year, Larry.
And a very happy New Year to you as well. Paul, this seems to be a time of new beginnings for many folks, so congratulations to you on your new role with Maxon. What are you doing these days?
Thank you very much, Larry. Well, I'm learning how to focus on markets outside of North and South America these days, where since the complete acquisition of Maxon by Nemetschek and the placement of Dave McGavran from Adobe as our CEO, we've been learning how to become a global company and using all the resources around the world and working together. It's been a very exciting time.
Well, I wish you great success and many congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
Wearing your visual effects hat, what were some of the highlights for the VFX industry in 2018?
Wow, highlights for the visual effects. Well, I'm really excited about some of the things I've been seeing where applications of VR and applications of AR in terms of VFX they've been getting closer and closer to some pretty exciting developments where the offerings are way more practical than they've been in the past. And it seemed like for a few years VR was the buzzword, but everybody was playing around. And it seems like in 2018, we started to see the beginnings of some practical applications and exciting uses of it. And I think 2019 will show us even more.
As you look at software marketing from last year to this, what trends in marketing are you seeing start to emerge?
Well, it's a challenging time for a marketer these days with the GDPR in Europe. Everybody has to be concerned about people's privacy, and of course, we have always been very respectful about how we contact people and, giving them the option of opting out and making sure that we're not spamming. I'm very sensitive to myself. I don't like it myself. But GDPR is another animal altogether. It puts a lot of restrictions on you as a marketing person and how you can reach people. Because it's Europe and you can't sequester people. You can kind of break up the markets, but at the same time, it's better probably just to work it all together. But it's a very challenging time for marketing people to get the word out. So I think our approach over the last 20 years of building community has really paid off, because that seems to be where you find people, and that seems to be where people want to be found, is in a community with their peers, with other artists, and exchanging ideas, getting inspired, exciting each other, and that seems to be where it's a great validation of what we've been doing over the years to a certain point.
But it takes and puts all the pressure really on word of mouth and takes the control away from you and puts the control really in the hands of the user.
Right. And I would guess for a lot of corporations, they wouldn't like that. Personally, I love that. What it does is it behooves us to make sure our customers are happy. It puts a little bit of responsibility on us to make sure that our customers are getting serviced properly, they're getting their needs taken care of. I'm very comfortable with my customers speaking for us at this point, because I feel that we do bend over backwards and try to give them everything we can. We support the community as much as we can. We try to provide resources and service as much as we possibly can. And I think customers need that. It's also that assurance, not to single them out, but Adobe went a few years back, they went subscription, and everybody's concern was that they would be beholding. They would be stuck with the subscription. They don't know where to go. Adobe's done a pretty good job of making sure that there's been value in that subscription, that the updates have been coming out on a regular basis, that new technology has been coming on a regular basis. And I think if you keep people happy, that if your customers are speaking for you, you shouldn't be worried.
So what's going to be driving the visual effects industry in 2019?
I truly believe it's going to be interactive, AR and VR types of application. The smaller shows where the heads of studios or the heads of departments at TV studios or film studios, the smaller events that I have been where I've been hearing people speak, they've been talking about how to incorporate some of this new technology, the interactive technology, a lot of specifically, how to incorporate maybe the game engines into some of the work that they're doing. I think there's still a lot of exploration going on, but I think we're starting to see fruit from that exploration. There were some minor, inclusions at the last year's Super Bowl in terms of AR and the application of that, and I know that they want to take that even further. And I've noticed this season of the NFL, there's been a lot more pushing those boundaries, and I think you're also seeing that a bit more in the visual effects industry. We've gotten to the point now where they can pretty much make a movie about anything that they want to make. Years ago it used to be, we're not going to be able to pull off Aquaman because how are you going to do all that water, et cetera. And nowadays it's they're doing it. So I think the next part is how can you get the audience involved? Sort of like what we're talking about with marketing is how can you get the community involved and they'll do your marketing for you. I think the entertainment industry has to find that same avenue. How can you get the audience involved? Because you're not drawing, you're drawing them in to see some of these films, but there's a lot of people not going because, I can do this at home. I can, I've got a big screen TV and I've got a 4K and I got better surround and I don't have to hear other people chewing on popcorn. How can they take that next step in interactivity or involvement in some shape or form?
How do you see the role of the creative professional evolving this year?
It's a different time. I was listening a little bit to your interview before, just recently with Emery, and talking about the smaller houses and, a lot of these guys who are not, hired guns. The industry is driven by great artists, hired guns, who are not necessarily employees. And it's really interesting because those guys who are I guess for lack of a better word, the Renaissance men of the visual effects industry, the guys that can do everything and can visualize everything, it's really becoming more about those guys and less about the giant pipelines where people are just plugging in colors. I think that is going to be the bigger change is that you maybe I hope that we'll start to get to know those artists even a bit more. I've noticed my friends who are not in the industry are starting to understand that it's not so much ILM or Disney or this big studio or that big studio, but the artists who are making it happen. Sort of like back in the old days, Disney was, well known by the 9 old men, right? The 9 old men of animation. Or is it 7? Oh boy. I think it's the 9 old men, yes?
I think it's 7, but we'll pretend it's 9.
7, thank you. Okay, 7. Yes, I was 7 or 9 was in my head. So the 7 old men of animation were known for the work that they did, and I think that the artists will. I'm hoping, maybe this is just personal wishful thinking, that the individual artists or the teams of artists that accomplish these tasks will get more recognition or will be revered more for the work that's being turned out.
And Paul, for people who want more information about Maxon, where can they go on the web?
They can go to www.maxon.net.
That's all one word, maxon.net. And Paul Babb is the head of worldwide marketing for Maxon. And Paul, thanks for joining us and have yourself a very happy new year.
You too, Larry. Thank you.
Bye-bye. I was just thinking of the opening lines from Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Charles Dickens must have worked in media. The start of a new year is a good time to spend a few minutes taking stock on where we are and where we're going. As you heard tonight, there's no shortage of exciting new technology on the horizon. But as Emery Wells said tonight, at the end, it all comes down to story. The technology we need to tell compelling stories has never been more accessible or more affordable. Distribution has given each of us access to audiences that we could not even dream of a few years ago. Still, technology and distribution are only two sides of the media triangle. The third is story. That's where each of us can make a unique contribution because each of us tells stories in different ways. Yes, we are in a challenging business environment, but there is a never-ending hunger for great stories, and stories, both large and small, are our stock in trade. I wish you and all your stories a very successful 2019. I want to thank our guests this week, Michael Kammes with Bebop Technology, Philip Hodgetts with Lumberjack System, Producer-Director Maxim Jago, Larry O'Connor with Otherworld Computing, Emery Wells with Frame.io, Paul Babb with Maxon, and James DeRuvo with DoddleNews.com. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. The Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2019 by Thalo LLC.